I want to talk about books on security and penetration testing, some good resources I've found, things that are worth looking into that'll help you get yourself started in penetration testing. Most of these books I already have. One of them I don't, but I'm going to get. And I think if you're interested in doing some of the things that I'm talking about on my YouTube broadcast, you'll possibly be interested in these as well. So that said, let me let me get started with some of the books. The first one, and this is one I've read off and on a number of times, but I'm really trying to dig deep into this time because it's an excellent resource for beginners, is just called Penetration Testing, and it's from NoStarch Press. It's a few years old now, June 2014, but it's got a lot of good information about getting started. It teaches you enough about using the tools that you can figure out a lot of things on your own after you've worked through this. I recommend getting it from NoStarch because even though it costs a little bit more than Amazon, you get the print and the ebook together for that price. I love having print books. I love holding them in my hands and reading them that way. Making notes is easier. There's something comforting about holding a book and browsing it that way. But I also read these books electronically as well at times, and so I like to have both copies if possible. If the price is reasonable, that's how I'll pick them up. So as with my other videos that I've done and videos I'll do in the future, I will include links to all this information that I'm talking about here. You don't have to look up here at the bar and try to copy it. I'll put that in the description down below. But penetration testing, very good book, excellent for beginners, really good to get you started in doing exactly that, penetration testing. It is available on NoStarch Press, and it's available on Amazon. You can see I just bought it recently. I've had the electronic edition for a few years, but I picked up the physical book because, as I said, I like to have them. So it's only 26 bucks on Amazon. It's about half the price of the NoStarch book. You just don't get the benefit of having the electronic copy, but certainly worth getting from Amazon if you don't care about the electronic version. The next book that I want to recommend, one that I've again had electronically for a while, only recently gotten physical copy of the book. It's called Metasploit. This is a book that goes through a lot of the Metasploit framework. That's a tool for generating, creating, writing, using tools to break into systems. We'll talk about that. That's something I'm going to spend a lot of time working with in my videos, I expect. If you want to learn the ins and outs of the system, of the tool framework, this book, again from NoStarch, is worth getting. It's a few years old now, but just like the penetration testing book, it covers the basics, teaches you how to understand what you're using, gets you started, gets you going, and then leaves you with enough information, enough knowledge that you can figure out a lot of things on your own. Again, it's $50 from NoStarch. You get the print and the ebook together for that price. If you don't care about the ebook, if all you want is the print, you can pop over here to Amazon. You can pick it up for $36. At that price, I think it's worth doing the NoStarch version, getting the ebook and the print book. But again, up to you how you want to do it. Another book that's really useful is the NMap book. I'll talk a little bit later about the NMap network scanning tool. It is a good information gathering tool. The author of it, Fyodor, has written a book about it. And once again, it's an older book. It's been out a few years, but the tool still works the same. It just has more options now than it did when this book was first written. And once again, as with the other books, it provides you the knowledge and understanding that you need with the tool to leave you at a point where you can figure out the other things on your own and work through the tool, figure out the new options that aren't covered in the book. This one, I'm on the NMap webpage to show you the book. You can't download the full book, I don't think, although I'm going to look right here after I've said it. You can get most of the information off of the website by looking around at your options here, looking at the documentation Fyodor has on the NMap website. But this one, you're going to want the print book. You really need to pick this one up from Amazon or from another bookseller. It's $37 new. And you can see on the page here that I bought this a long time ago. I've read some of it. I have not read all of it. It's very much loaded with information, so it can be a little hard to process some of it. Certainly it's not the kind of thing that you're going to just remember everything you read. But if you sit with the book and the NMap tool and do what's shown in the book, it's very helpful at discovering systems on a network, what those systems are running. It'll even help you identify what those systems probably are, as far as what version of Linux, what version of Solaris, what version of Windows, and so on. So I'll talk more about the NMap tool in a future video, and in fact I will link back to this website again just to emphasize NMap in this video because it's such a useful tool. Next book I want to talk about, I don't have this book physically, I only have the ebook, but it's a wonderful book and it's one that I am going to pick up the physical edition of. It is called Kali Linux Revealed. When you're working with penetration testing, Kali Linux is probably the leading Linux distribution, probably one of the most important tools you can pick up and learn. We'll be working with it a lot in my videos. We'll come back to it over and over. In fact, this video I'm going to just talk briefly about getting it downloaded. It's so important that I think you need to have it. You'll see a lot of hands-on with this, and so we're going to get it downloaded and set it up in a future video. The book Kali Linux Revealed is available for free download on the Kali Linux website. I will again provide that link so that you can get it that way as an ebook. If you want to pick it up and buy it, Amazon has it. It's only $27. As I said, I've only read the ebook, but I've got a couple of hours into it so far. I found it to be a very good book. Covers a lot of the information you need to know about learning how to use Kali Linux, and so definitely worth getting this. As you get more into penetration testing, you're going to want to learn more advanced things than what's in the penetration testing book that I recommend to get started with penetration testing. So definitely worth picking this up and reading through it and learning some things about it. Now, books out of the way for now, and let me say I will probably talk in future videos about other books that I think are worth getting. But books out of the way, let's talk about some of the tools that we will be using in learning penetration testing. As I just said, Kali Linux is sort of the standard Linux distribution. There are plenty of good security Linux distributions, but Kali Linux is, I think, the most well known. I think probably the most used, although I haven't checked DistroWatch to verify that, but I think it's the most used security distribution. And there's a reason for that. It's very good. It's set up to work very much how you would expect a security Linux to work. So I've already downloaded that, but I'm going to show downloading it because it's worth having. Let me pop back to this other browser for a second and just show you the penetration testing book on the NoStarch web page. In this book, they use Kali Linux 1.06, which is an older version. No reason you have to get that version. You can get the most recent version, and that's what I'm going to be doing in the videos that I'm doing, is using the most recent version. But if you want to use the 1.06 version that is used in the penetration testing book, you can download it right here. There's a virtual machine already set up for it, or you can get the ISO and do an install yourself. So that's how you get the slightly older but still exceptionally good, useful 1.06 version. If you want the most recent version, and as I've said numerous times in this video, I will provide these links, but if you're watching and want to follow along, you can. From the Kali Linux homepage, kali.org, you go to the downloads option, go down to download Kali Linux, just like you'd think. There are a number of options for this. I'm using the Kali Linux 64. You can download the ISO directly. You can download the torrent. I got the torrent because I believe in sharing the bandwidth with other users. Download the torrent so that Kali, the folks with Kali, don't have to provide all the hosting for the bandwidth themselves. Doing a torrent, if you're not familiar with it, spreads out the bandwidth usage over a lot of providers of the tool. If you do that, especially if you do that, you're going to want to check this SHA-256 sum of your downloaded file. But just real quickly so you see how to do it, click on the torrent link. I'm going to click on the 32-bit version because I haven't downloaded it yet, so you can see how to do this. Click on the torrent link. I open it with a tool called Deluge. This does not come with, Deluge does not come installed already on Ubuntu, but if you want it, all you need to do is an apt install Deluge, sudo apt install Deluge. It will ask for your password. It'll check. I've already installed it, so my system doesn't do anything when I'm showing this now. But if you're doing it at home and haven't installed this before, this will go through an install, ask if you want to install it, say yes, and it's done. So open with Deluge. Now, the first time you try to open, you're going to have to choose Other to see your possible options and select Deluge. But once you've done that, the Deluge client will open. It will ask you for the location you want to save this torrent. I just go with the default and say add and let it download. You can see here what I've already downloaded, so you'll look at that, and some of these you may want to get yourself. So we'll come back, we'll talk about this another time, but I'm downloading here the 32-bit version. Earlier this week I downloaded the 64-bit version, and I'm going to look at that in a minute and show you how to check that SHA-256 sum that I mentioned. So let me continue on with the other tools. We'll come back and talk about checking the Kali Linux download once I highlight these other tools that I think are worth getting. The next one is called Metasploit. At the beginning of this video I recommended a book on Metasploit. It is a open source tool used for developing and running vulnerability testing, penetration testing, network attack tools. I'm not real familiar with Metasploit. I only conceptually know about it because I haven't had much hands-on work with it, but I've got that book. I'll be working through it. I'm going to be using this more. You don't need to download anything for this necessarily because it is included as part of the Kali Linux ISO. It's part of that security distribution, and so nothing you need to download. That said, you can download it if you want. Right on the Metasploit front page, there is the download option. So we'll click on that. We'll get that started going just so you see how to do it. There's the download for the Metasploit framework, which is what I use. There's Metasploit Pro, which is a professionally supported tool framework. You can get a trial of it. You can buy that if you want. I have not looked into using this because the freely available framework is enough for me. But if you want to try out the professional version, by all means, come here and check it out. Get in touch with Rapid7, see what they offer, see how much it costs. And if you use the tool a lot, you may feel more comfortable having this. I don't know. Again, I've got no experience with it. I'm just going to download the Metasploit framework though. Get that download started here. Let's see. Okay, so download it on GitHub. Sorry, I'm going through this for the first time in a long time. I haven't done this download in a while. So here's the framework. Let's see. Okay, clearly I should have done this before trying to do the video. There's more to this than what I'm ready to go into right now. I'll do a download of Metasploit in a future video. I apologize for saying I was going to do it and then not being able to. Let's go on to talk about other tools. There's something about Metasploit I want to come back to though. So in just a minute we'll come back to this tab and look at it. The next tool, this is a commercial tool. It's called Nexpose or Nexpose. I'm not sure the proper pronunciation actually. It is a commercial commercial vulnerability scanner. You can get a free trial of it. The reason I point this out is it's also from Rapid7. They're the company that drives development and maintenance of Metasploit. Because of that, I think they're worth checking out their Nexpose scanner just to try out. You can see down at the bottom of the page it's got a try for free. You can download it. I think it's a 30-day trial. I'm waiting for the website to load up so I can verify that and tell you for sure. There we go. Try it for 30 days. I haven't done this. I don't know that much about it, but I point it out because if you're getting started in in penetration testing, this vulnerability scanner is something that you may well find helpful, useful to have, so it's worth picking up, worth at least trying out and checking. Okay, Rapid7's done now. Let's move on to some other tools that I like, other things that I want to point out. OpenVAS is a vulnerability scanner that is open source. If you're just getting started in penetration testing and vulnerability scanning, this is really where you want to start. This OpenVAS is not part of Kali Linux, so it's something you're going to want to download separately. Do the download, and in a future video, I will talk about installing, configuring, and using this. But I just want to point out right now, you can download a virtual appliance, the binary of OpenVAS, or the source itself. Because it's open source, you can get the source. I'm going to, as I said, do a future video about getting OpenVAS, downloading it, installing it, configuring it, using it for the first time. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time right now talking about it, but I do want to point out it's a useful tool. It's something I will be using a lot in my videos on penetration testing, and it's worth learning and using, even if you don't end up long-term sticking with it. Why wouldn't you stick with it? Well, the next vulnerability scanner I want to point out is Nessus. It's kind of the granddaddy of the industry. It's not the oldest by any means. There are other tools that have been around longer than Nessus, but it has been around a long time. It is well known. Nessus used to be an open source product, but a lot of people were using it. Few people were contributing to it. Development got to be difficult, I think, or maintenance rather got to be difficult for the gentleman who started Nessus. So they pulled it out of open source distribution, turned it into a commercial product. That said, there is a freely usable non-commercial license for it, I believe. I say that having not checked it now, I need to verify that. But at the very least, you can try Nessus. It is a very powerful vulnerability scanner. This is one I have used. I've used it quite a bit. You can do scans of your network to find what version of software is running on each system. It will tell you if there are known vulnerabilities. It will point you to the vulnerability descriptor document, the CVE document for that vulnerability for the application that's loaded. Nessus does an awful lot. It makes it very easy to do basic scanning and viewing of a system. It's not enough to just run Nessus and turn over a report to a company, but it's enough to get you started, where if you know how to use other tools like Metasploit and the Kali Linux tools that we'll be covering in the future, it's enough to get you started so that you can use those other tools and show to a company or to a friend, if you're doing this for friends, hey, here are the problems you have on your system. Now let's talk about fixing them. So Nessus is sort of, I can't sing the praises of Nessus enough because I've used it and I know how good it is. I don't mean to detract from Rapid7's tools. Because they provide Metasploit, I'm going to speak highly of them as a company. I think it's great what they're doing. I suspect that their tool is very good. I will be using it, doing a video on it, and speaking more about it in the future, but right now I don't have the experience with it to cover it well enough to say as much good about it as I do with Nessus. So, I've jumped around a little bit here, I apologize. But let me go back to Metasploit here. And the reason I want to come back to Metasploit is on the side of the Metasploit download web page, before you go to GitHub to get it, there is an option that says download now. Fill out the form to download Metasploitable. This is something we're going to be using. I'm going to fill this out and try to download it now. Although I've downloaded it before, I don't know if they're going to tell me that I can do it. But what Metasploitable is a virtual machine built specifically to be vulnerable to attacks by Metasploit. This is something that is very handy for learning penetration testing and is good for practicing on before you do live work on real systems if you go into this professionally. But I will be doing excuse me, I will be doing a video on working with Metasploitable and Metasploit. I will be showing how you can break into these systems, break into this intentionally vulnerable system, just to help show some of the techniques that will be used in breaking into systems. I don't mind that the whole world knows who I am, so I've left the video running while I fill this out. I don't want to give out my cell phone number, even though it's not that difficult to find. I'm going to stop the video for a second, finish filling out this form so that I can do the download. Once this download is complete, once this download is started, once the form is complete, I'll start the video back up and continue on. So bear with me a moment while I pause the video recording and get this form filled out so I can download Metasploitable. I'll be right back. Okay, I filled out the form, I click submit, I got to the next page, and now I actually click the download Metasploitable now, which will start this. I'm going to save it and pop this up just to see. It's about an 825 meg download, so it'll take a little while. I'll do a future video about actually installing it and doing some basic work on it, doing what you can do. So that is done, that is out of the way. Metasploitable is something I recommend you pick up right now if you're going to follow along with the penetration testing labs that I'm planning on doing in the future. I will be getting it installed and set up in the future so others can see how to do it and get going with it. So I think that's all I'm going to cover for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. As I said, I will come back and do a download of Metasploit in the future so that you can see how to do it, figure out what's got to be done to get it. My recollection from having gotten it before is it's not that difficult. I just haven't looked at the GitHub setup to see what I've got to do the full download. So we'll get that in the future. We'll come back to some of these other tools, use them, set them up, configure them, start playing around. I still have virtual machine setups that I'm going to do videos for that I'll show, but pretty soon I hope to be working with these tools and showing you how to use them and hopefully get some folks started with penetration testing on their own. So thank you for watching. Check the description below for all the links there. I know there are plenty of them, and feel free to ask any questions if you have them. I'll be checking back on here to see if anyone needs help. So I appreciate your time and thank you for watching.